And from that mystery, from that determination and courage to face the unknown, something not less than miraculous happens inside of us. When we are facing the uncertainty of death with certainty, this tremendous shift begins to appear. Now, as this tyrannical noise goes off, the example that Blandine gave before, that a tyrant has to make noise all the time so that people will not know the truth, when we face death and look at the door, we start to see the whole room, and we have free press in our inner country and objectivity. And this tremendous lack of confidence, which is chronic, it's almost a mental disease. It's not a mental disease because almost everyone has it, but this tremendous lack of confidence and a constant need that somebody will validate me comes from this lack of objectivity. And the lack of objectivity comes because we are afraid to look death in the eyes. Now, we'd rather see life as known, predictable, defined, and therefore have a kind of sense of false control. Look, it's 8:33, I come out of the house, I'll be at 8:37 in the bus stop and the bus will be right there. Yeah, if you are in Northern Europe. If you're in India, different story, different sense of control. But these little predictabilities, I open, tick at 9, and there's the news, there's the guy I heard since I was 15 saying the news, and that state of predictability gives a false state of control. This is the meaningless appearing as meaningful. But when we put death in the picture, and honestly, what do you know will happen in death? We have our speculations. We read our books, saw our documentaries, had our conversations, and drew some conclusions. Bravo. Are you certain that what you believe about death is exactly what will happen? I'm for sure not certain. I'm certain I am not certain. Even I give workshops on death and researched a lot. Nevertheless, I am sure that it will be something completely unexpected. Yeah, if you never ever tasted honey, all the books of honey are one thing and honey is another thing. We don't have a memory of death, and death will be completely unpredictable, unknown, mysterious, and yet it will be there for sure in our future. And this contact with the unknown says, okay, I don't take my security from the predictability of life, because that's limited. And yet I want to have a sense of security, so where does it come from? And with death comes a feeling, when we embrace death, comes a feeling of mystery. And from that mystery, from that determination and courage to face the unknown, something not less than miraculous happens inside of us. When we are facing the uncertainty of death with certainty, this tremendous shift begins to appear. The false personality collapses, and this can be a sudden process, but mostly it's a slow process, and it can take a few months or sometimes even a few years, in which our entire motivational structure changes. Money doesn't make that much sense anymore. Fame doesn't make that much sense anymore. Revenge, competition don't make much sense anymore. And there are two simultaneous processes. One is the diminishing of the false personality based on this ignoring of death, and two is the rising of the essence of our being. The soul, if you may, or if you want to call it whatever you want to call it. but something which is real, something which is not mind-based, is not invented. It doesn't depend on our imaginations or opinions. So there is this process. Now sometimes the disappearing of personality happens very fast and the essence is quite immature, and there might be some very difficult periods of anxiety, of depression and so forth in the process. And it is very important to balance this process of facing death with a lot of spiritual practice, spiritual reading, spiritual community, and if you have a spiritual guide or a teacher, that's amazing, so that as the old personality or the old structure collapses, there is a new structure which appears there. Now, the new structure of ourselves is not as defined, is not as verbal, and is not as confining. That in us which contains death is far more free. You see, we face death as a society, and we face the illusion that death doesn't exist as a society. Well, I ignore death, but everybody ignores death, so it's all right. Death, I think the government solved it. Yeah, the people, the officials, they solved it. And once we start to break that structure, we become free also from society, and we become free from the social norms. And for people who have not faced death, if you start to come out of the social norms, you will have to face it. And some people stay in the norms because they really don't want to face death. Now, as the very defined, predictable, known structure, I know me, 8:37 I go on the bus, 5:33 I go on the bus back, and 6:15 I'm home, and that's my favorite Monday show, that's my favorite Tuesday TV show, that's my favorite YouTube channel, subscribe here, whatever. That's me. I hate that guy, and I love that one. That's me. That very defined structure of personality, when you put death enough times, you think of death enough time, it just looks like a caricature. Like a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 60-year-old child. Pathetic, almost. And then the old motivations for meaningless things, for things that don't nourish the heart, that don't give value, that don't give peace, not to ourselves and not to anyone, another motivational, or rather another driving force appears in the heart. A driving force which is not based on desire, it's not based on instinct, it's not based on ambition or competition or any of that. From that mysterious me, we move from the defined me, which is the ego, into a mysterious, again, not a mental mystery, but a mysterious sensation in the heart, which is simultaneously clear, but also non-verbal, appears aspirations, inspirations, rise from the heart, and they become the driving force. And from that, if before facing death we were all about me, and accumulation, once we face death, there is this wish to serve. And that wish to serve is not some dry mental thing, I serve to get validated. No, I serve because this whole world is me. I burn for that. There is an integrated, vivid feeling which appears in the heart as death comes very profoundly near us. And to take the example of the poem that Blandine gave before, now that the agitation subsides, the poem of life starts to make sense. This body is a metaphor. This world is a metaphor. Countries are a metaphor. The earth and the ecosystem are a metaphor. And when the mind is silent and the heart is burning and awake, we get the deep meaning. It's no longer just words. Yeah, a flower floating on the ocean of honey into the mystery of the unknown. Yeah, it's no longer about a flower. It is me, I am the flower, I am the ocean, I am the unknown. That poem makes tremendous sense. The entirety of life receives a very profound, very soulful meaning.
So first of all, the process of grief is very personal. And the best thing that you can do to grieve someone is to allow space for that. To really take deliberate, conscious time to grieve, to feel how sad you are that they are gone, to feel what they meant to you, to write letters and say all the words you wanted to say to them somehow into the beyond, or to a picture of them, to really relate to them, and to not don't try to get out of it. This is something that perpetuates grief the most if you try to avoid it. Same like with death, basically. You try to avoid anything, it will just perpetuate in time. So just allow for the grief to be the grief. And for some people, you might grieve for the rest of your life, and you will just carry that sadness in your heart, and that will be part of you, and that is also completely fine. Might even perpetuate you into not perpetuate, might even propel you into ecstasy, possibly, if you follow the tantric path. And if somebody dies and you don't feel sad, it just means that you don't have to grieve as much. You simply had maybe a more free way of loving, with less attachment to the particular let's say individual desires and so forth that you had attached to that relationship. They seem to be less, so you could let go of that person much easier. Of course, sometimes we also suppress, and we might be in a moment of shock, and then it seems like we are not crying. Very often you have this, that people, even they have this anxiety that they will not cry at the funeral of a loved one. It's normal not to cry at the funeral of a loved one because you're in shock. They are just gone. It's completely crazy. You don't even have the capacity to compute it for most of us. So it's fine. Just take it at face value, and just make sure that you still leave space to feel whatever you feel after somebody died. Just leave space for that. And if you feel utter happiness and ecstasy, and you feel how wonderful the time that you had together on this planet, and now they passed to another adventure, that's wonderful. But then leave space to feel that and be conscious of that. And if you feel more sad aspects, then also leave space for that. Those of you who are grieving and you wish for support, there are a lot of grief centers and places you can call up and help you with that. It can be very, very helpful. And there is a great book called On Death and Dying by Elizabeth Kübler-Ross. That is a wonderful preparation, both for people who are getting closer at least to maybe dying, who knows what will happen, and also for people who have people close to death and you wish to support them on death and dying. It's a wonderful work.
Yes, you can see the research of Stevenson. You can even find him on YouTube, also from University of Virginia. He studied 3,000 people who said, I'm an incarnation of so-and-so. And they went to the village, town of so-and-so, and said, when did he die? And how did he? And sometimes they even have the same scars, and so forth. So this is just generally that there is actually quite a bit of scientific research on it. It is valuable to remember the past lives, and those who will join our weekly course in the 4th year of the yoga course, we have a whole technique there. They just, some of you did it last week. So it's a very long preparation. It's about a 3-month preparation, and then you receive a special technique for recalling the past life, and you meditate for many hours to see that. It is valuable if you want to grow spiritually from a certain point. we forget about our past lives because this is this game. Yeah, this game of life, you forget. You forget the events, but not necessarily you forget the lessons. You come here with certain qualities, with a certain capacity to observe, with certain traits of personality, which are, according to the Tantric tradition, very intertwined with your past lives. But one of the things is that you forget, and only if you practice a lot of meditation or have some kind of virtue, because some people, they just remember, then you remember, and then you have a much vaster context of yourself. Remembering past lives has this huge, huge advantage that the answer to the question, who am I, is much closer to reality, is much deeper and much more complex. Yeah, but a profound and meaningful remembering, not, I also imagine I was Cleopatra. Everybody is an incarnation of Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Yeah? No, like deeper things. And when these memories comes, they come with a very, very intense emotions at times. Tremendous. And they can really blow you out of your senses if you don't have the necessary preparation.
Yeah, we had the honor to be close to people who can tell what lives the two have. And mostly you wouldn't want to know. It's quite shocking, even if you're such a cute yogi, this life. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.